How's it going, friends? This is Ray with Biblical Thinking, and I am your host. And we are about to cover some news in the Christian community. Now, it's both Christian and it's not Christian. Now, what do I mean by that? What are we gonna talk about today? Yes, my friends, as you can see back there in the TV, I hope it's clear for you to see. We are on a countdown. And what is this countdown? As you can see here, this countdown, we have 7 hours, 40 minutes, and 16 seconds in counting. What is exactly going to happen? We have, my friends, what we are going to talk about today is something known as the final experiment. Now, what is the final experiment? The final experiment was created by a pastor by the name of Will Duffy, and he's a pastor in a small church in Denver, Colorado. And he created what's known as the final experiment, which it's an expedition which starts in several hours. It's an expedition of both Christian and non-Christian believers, and it's also a group of believers and non-believers that are diverse on a certain topic. And as you can see here, what is the topic here with the final experiment? As you can see on top, it says under the final experiment, it says Antarctica. What are we talking about, friends? What exactly is the final experiment? Well, let me read exactly from the website on what it says is the final experiment. It says the final experiment is a way to settle the shape of the earth debate. Yes, friends, we are here to talk about the flat earth versus globe. You have here they're going to take a trip to Antarctica. This is what it looks like on a globe. This is what flat earthers believe, that Antarctica is not a continent, but yet it's a shelf of ice that surrounds all the continents of the earth. And yes, friends, this is a flat earth model with a dome on top. And so globers, or that's how they're called, people who believe that the earth is round, they believe in an Antarctica that's actually a continent, while flat earthers believe that Antarctica is not a continent, but it's an ice wall that encircles the rest of the continents. So, what is the final experiment? Let me read it starting again. The final experiment is a way to settle the shape of the earth debate. Both the flat earth side and the globe side agree that whether or not there is a 24-hour sun in Antarctica will confirm if we live on a flat plane or on a globe. A 24-hour sun cannot work on a flat plane in the south, and the sun cannot set on a globe during the southern summer. So these are the two hot topic debates that these two groups are going to settle. Now they're going to Antarctica because what people believe that the earth is round is that Antarctica is the most southern part of our globe, right? Flat earthers believe it's not northern or southern, but it's what encompasses our land masses, right? They believe the land masses are in the middle, water around it, which is our oceans, and beyond that water is an ice boundary, which they call Antarctica. And this is what flat earthers believe. So, what is the final experiment? It's two groups of people. One side, they believe in the earth is round. The other side, they believe the earth is flat. But what's interesting is amongst these two groups, there are Christians. Yes, friends, there are Christians who believe that the earth is round, and there are Christians who believe that the earth is flat. Now, this has been organized by this pastor, Will Duffy from Denver, Colorado, in order to settle the debate, because you have so many things that divide us, not only in our country, but in our world, but especially in the Christian church. And some people are trying to make it to where this is one thing that us as a Christian church do not have to worry about. It's one less thing to argue about. It's one less thing to take away from our churches, that we don't have to worry about someone talking about, well, is the earth flat or is it round? Does it have a basis in salvation? And what we find here in many Christian circles, that this debate right now is getting so heated that it's dividing people, and it's actually dividing churches. And many people in the previous years have made conferences in regards to, is the earth flat or is it round? So yes, my friends, although it does sound like a topic that's full of nonsense in many people's opinion, it actually is something that we do need to talk about. Now, in today's video, we are not going to discuss whether the earth is round or earth is flat. We'll save that for another time. Plus, I've covered this before in several other short videos in the past, but we might do another one in the future. Well, we're just talking about the final experiment that's going on in a few hours. It's going to start where these two groups of people, one group believers in a round earth, the other believers in a flat earth, are coming together to find out what is the truth. And their basis of truth in regards to is the world round or is the world flat is in their statement is that, let me read this again so I make sure I do not mess this up. They want to make sure, it says, both the flat earth side and the globe side agree that whether or not there is a 24-hour sun in Antarctica will confirm if we live on a flat plane or a globe. So one of their main topics of discussion that's going to prove either side's point, or maybe prove that both are wrong, but they believe one or the other is going to be proven right, is whether or not if they go to the most southern section of the globe, or if they go to the outer limits of this ice ring, this ice wall, is what they both believe is one side's going to say, yes, there's a 24-hour sun period. The other side's going to say, no, there's not a 24-hour sun period. And depending on what they actually visually see with their own eyes and with all the camera gear that they're taking, it's going to show them whether or not their belief is true or not. One believes there is, one believes there's not. And it also says here that a 24-hour sun cannot work on a flat plane in the southern region. So what the people who believe in a round earth are saying is that if we visibly see a 24-hour sun, then that proves that the flat earth is wrong. Now, the other way can be said as well, right? Let me get this right. So a 24-hour sun cannot work on a flat plane. So if the other way goes around, then it proves that the flat earth people are right. It says, and a sun cannot set on a globe during the southern summer, right? So if the sun sets, well, then that proves that we're in a flat plane. But if it stays for 24 hours, then that proves that we're on a ball, right? We're on the globe Earth. So these are the two main experiments. I was watching a video in regards to the final experiment. You can actually find it on YouTube, where Pastor Will Duffy actually talks about this experiment with the gentleman there in Answers in Genesis in Kentucky, and he explains what's going to happen during this experiment. And he also talks about the people that are going, and there were many people who were invited to this. Let me get some stats here. On the trip, there were many people who were asked to come, both flat earthers and both globers. I'm going to say globers because that's how they call them, right? People who believe in a round earth. They call them globers. So the people who accepted the invitation to go to Antarctica, there was 3 flat earthers and 11 people who believe that the earth is a ball. So it's not even, right? Although there was a lot more people on the flat earth side that were actually invited, but yet they didn't accept. So let me go through some more stats here in regards to the participants. Now, I found one of the participants on the flat earth side very interesting because he is one of two, I'll just say one of two, who really brings in the flat earth to the Christian community. And this guy's name is Jaron Campanella, and he actually has the Flat Earth podcast with David Weiss. And they don't really do much on the podcast. They maybe come out with one podcast like every 2 years. They were doing a lot more during COVID, but since then they'd only come out with maybe one a year. But you can find them a lot on YouTube. On Jaronism is what he calls his site, his official site. You can also find David Weiss on there too. Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole is his YouTube channel, and these two go back and forth in regards to the proofs of flat Earth. And Jaron also goes upon the proof of Christianity because he's a Christian flat earther. So they answer many people's questions. Maybe many of you have seen David Weiss on many interviews or podcasts. He's really pushing flat earth. He has been for many years now, and he's gained a good following. He's very popular. But what I found interesting here, and I don't know the reason why, and it's not given, but Jaron did accept this, and he is going to Antarctica with these people. He's one of the flat earthers. But I found it interesting is the main proponent for flat earth is David Weiss. If you look at any podcast, any talk show, anywhere where it's talking about flat earth, he's always there. I mean, he always says that, he woke up several years ago, and then that's when he gave up his job, which was his own business, and then he moved into this belief of flat earth, and that's what he does for a living now. But it's interesting to me that, him being the main proponent for flat earth, he didn't accept the invitation. He is not going to Antarctica with Jaron, his podcast friend, and the others that were invited. He is not going. Now, why that is, I have no idea. It does not say. But another person on here that's very funny that they didn't accept this was Mark Sargent. Now, if any of you have ever seen the Netflix series about the flat Earth, I think it's called Beyond the Curve. It's a, forgive me for saying, but it's a dumb documentary, and it's not worth your time. But if you do feel you want to watch it, please do so. But no, you're not going to get anything out of it. And plus, at the end, they do an experiment to prove a flat Earth, when initially it just proves that we're on a globe. So it's not a very good documentary. And Mark Sargent, he tries to say that he's the main leader in flat earth, but when you follow a lot of stuff that he says, he doesn't even know what he's talking about. And he goes against the main beliefs of flat earth, which is a lot of what David Weiss and Jaron really talk about. So it's interesting that those two people who are proponents for flat earth did not go. Now, there are 3 people on the flat earth site that are going, and there are many others who are going here on the globe side. One person in particular on the globe side I want to bring out is Simon Dan. Now, I find this interesting that he is going, and I'm glad he is going, because when you watch his videos on YouTube, Simon Dan, he actually debunks the flat earth a lot. And he goes back and forth with Mark Sargent. He goes back and forth with David Weiss and others. And he just tries to disprove the flat earth. And he does a very, very, very good job at it. So it's interesting that he's going on this, and so is Jaron. When you have 2 big proponents that are always going after each other on YouTube, not so much Jaron, but maybe Simon Dan. But it's very interesting that they're both going on this trip, and it's going to be interesting to see the findings of what they actually find out in regards to this trip. Okay, so let's go through some other things in regards to this trip. So we know what the experiment is. It's called the final experiment. They're going to test out to see if there's a 24-hour sun or if the sun sets. They talked about in the video is that this Will Duffy, that they're taking a lot of scientific equipment. Jaron's taking a camera that can just follow the sun and guide it, just to make sure it does go through a 24-hour period. Now, how are they getting to Antarctica? Now, this is all in the information section on thefinalexperiment.com. You can go look through this through the facts section. It says, how are you getting to Antarctica? It says, we will be flying to Antarctica with a company called the Antarctic Logistics and Expeditions. They have been taking tourists to Antarctica since 1987, and their website is, and it says in the information, I'm not going to say it here. Now, this is what I find interesting. It also says where they're going to be staying in Antarctica. So it gives the expedition group that's going to take them to Antarctica. Then it says that they will be at the Union Glacier Camp. Union Glacier camp is located, and they give all the degrees and latitude and longitude there. It says it's 4.5. It's a 4.5 hour flight from Chile. So they are going to Antarctica. It's a 4.0 hour flight from Chile, and they give the longitude latitude points so we can pinpoint exactly where they're going. But what's interesting is they are going to Antarctica. Now, if you pay attention to the Antarctica people, or excuse me, the flat Earth people, they tell you that this is impossible. Even now, I said that they believe Antarctica is not a continent; it's an ice wall that surrounds the landmass and the waters. Right? It's what keep the waters in. But whenever you listen to a flat earther, especially Jaron or David Weiss, they say it's physically impossible to go to Antarctica. Now, this is interesting because they're going on a trip to go to Antarctica. Now, why is this interesting? Because every single flat earther believes that you cannot go to Antarctica because the Antarctic Treaty that says that no one is allowed to go there. And they say that the government controls Antarctica, and anytime anyone goes near there, they're scared off basically by the government. So one thing I was thinking about when I first heard about this, well, let's say they do make it to Antarctica, right? Let's say that they do make it there to where all the ice is, the continent is, or whether it's the ice wall, whatever the case may be, right? Let's say they make it there. Is that not the first proof that flat Earth is wrong? Because they made it there. Because their whole belief in the Antarctic ice wall is the fact of the Antarctic Treaty is that no one is allowed to go there. Now, yes, there is a portion of the ice wall that they say that they believe that they think that you can actually go there, but this is not where they're going. And so if they do make it there, that's the first proof that all the stuff that they've been saying all along is actually untrue, because they're actually going to set foot on Antarctica. Whether it's an ice wall or whether it's a continent, they're going to set foot on there. And if they're allowed to set foot on there, and if they do set foot on there, their first proof of flat Earth is completely false. So you could say that the flat earthers going on this trip, when they first make that step on the ice, that disproves their whole theory, because they're always saying the government will not allow them to go into Antarctica, right? Now, the second portion of this I find interesting is that whether it's a continent or whether it's an ice wall, both parties are going to have a hard time proving that the earth is flat. Now, yes, I understand there are two examples of the 24-hour sun or a sunset proves whether it's flat or round. There's a lot of other things that can prove whether or not each one of them actually believes what they actually preach. But let's stick to the flat earth side, right? For one, like I said, they said that no one can ever set foot on the ice wall, which if they do that, well, that's one point against them. Also, another one, many of them say that the ice wall is not that thick, so just beyond the ice wall, there should be another ocean, or there should be another form of land with lush vegetation. And they always use that understanding in regards to when Admiral Byrd went to Antarctica and says that he flew over the ice wall after they landed, but he flew and he ended up in this valley of lush vegetation, and then met some other, if you want to call them groups of people or aliens, right, beyond the ice wall, which they called themselves Aryans, and they spoke German. And then it goes on to other conspiracies and other crazy things, right? Well, if they're there, then that means now that they have the ability to continue further to try and prove that there is an ice wall, and beyond that wall is other forms, right? Other land masses, other groups of people. Will they take that chance? Will they actually do that? I'm thinking more than likely not. So here all along they say they can't get there, but when they do get there, they don't take the next step to continue proving that their theories are right. More than likely, they're not going to do that. So now they would have two strikes against them. One, they can get to the ice wall or Antarctica. Two, that there's no other groups of people or less vegetation or another part of another world beyond the ice wall, because they themselves would not go prove it, right? You're so close to proving it because you're there, even though you said you can't get there. Why not take the next step to prove your point? Why not go? No, they haven't got there yet, but I'm assuming that they're not going to go, right? And there's going to be a lot of information that's going to come back. I've already heard from the flat earth community that a lot of flat earthers are mad that these people are actually going on this expedition, when in reality these people are just trying to prove flat earth, right? Through their scientific method that they believe is true, in regards to the 24 hours sun being up and then the sunset there in the Antarctic continent or on the ice wall, right? So I've read their information and what they say. Now, as I said, let's look at the clock. They're leaving in 7 hours, 19 minutes, and 51 seconds. Two groups of people, one group flat earth, one group of people that believe that the earth is round, both groups of people going to one spot that one group of people saying is impossible to get to because the government has it on a no-fly zone, a no-go zone. You cannot get there because the government will not let you. But both groups are going there, and the first thing that we have to see is, will they actually get on the ice? Because if they actually do get on the ice, that's the first strike for flat earth, and everything upon that is probably going to be another strike, especially when it comes to what their observations are with the sun. Now, I did hear that one of the things that they want to do is actually observe sunspots. Now, why is that? Because flat earthers believe that sunspots are different on a flat earth than what they are on a globe, right? They say that if you see a flat earth if you see a sunspot in one area of the globe, that it should be there in another portion, but they say no, it's not, it's flipped. And Simon Dan has videos on this, and they go into the scientific proof on it. But the gentleman there in Kentucky, one of the pastors that works for the Ark Encounter there, what they're going to do is simultaneously observe the sun. So while these people are there in Antarctica observing the sun, he's going to do so at the very same time for the same amount of exposure there in Kentucky, to see if he can see the sunspots on the sun, and if they are on the same spot of the sun, both in Kentucky and there in Antarctica. So it's going to be very interesting. They haven't fully gave all the experiments that they are going to do, but this is the gist of things. They're just going there to prove if the earth is flat or if it's round. And the main thing is, will the sun set or will it stay up for 24 hours? And they're going to use that one thing to prove whether the earth is flat or not. But I would say, if I were a flat earther, I would say, let's take the next step. Let's continue going beyond the ice wall, and let's see if what we've always said for a long time is true. Because if they make it on the ice, well, they've already failed on their main point about Antarctica. Will they fail on their second, or will they succeed in their second? And maybe if they succeed in that second portion, the first one won't really be a failure, but it might be just a good timing on their effort, that they got there at the right time, maybe when the government wasn't watching. So this is the final experiment. Two groups of people, one flat earth, one group that believes that the earth is round, yet these people are Christian. Now, what's dangerous about this whole teaching about the flat earth versus the round earth? For one, both groups use the Bible to prove their points. Now, they give many different Bible texts, and I will let you look those up in regards to the flat earth beliefs on the Bible text that proves that the earth is flat. I will give you one heads up. when you take these verses from flat earthers that say that in the Bible it says that we live on the flat earth, you have to read every single verse in its context. Not just take out one verse and make a doctrine out of it, but read it in its context on what the actual chapter is talking about. Because a lot of flat earthers take these Bible verses out of context. And a lot of people who believe in the globe, they also take verses out of context and they don't know how to defend themselves. But here's the thing. Does it really matter whether the earth is flat or whether it's round? Does it really matter? Well, to one group it does, to another group it doesn't. To the people who believe that we live on a round ball, it really doesn't matter whether it's a ball or flat. What matters to them is that they're right? Because they believe in science and their science has to be right. On the other hand, the flat earthers are not like that. They don't believe that they have to be right, they believe that they are right. And not only do they believe that they are right, they take it to the next level amongst Christianity and say, is that if you do not believe in flat earth, then you are not a true Christian and you're deceived by Satan. So one group is kind of conservative while the other group is extreme in their belief, right? And we have to be careful with a lot of these groups that say that in order to be saved, you have to believe this one thing. Now, my understanding in regards to scripture is that salvation is a gift from God, and the way we make it to heaven is by getting getting into a relationship with Jesus. It's not about whether the earth is round or the earth is flat. Nowhere in the Bible do I find that truth that says my salvation is based on that. So, what is the whole point of these arguments then? It's just to prove who's right. Who's right, who's wrong. That's basically all it is. It's not a Christian thing, it's not a biblical thing. So, why do Christians spend their whole time on this? It's basically because of pride. And I find it interesting that these people are spending a lot of money and going through great lengths to prove this thing, yet they're proving it because one side says their Christianity needs to prove it, while the other side says, well, their Christianity says that this is the way it is. But yet both sides are really doing this for nothing because it does nothing for our salvation. Yet they do believe that it does. Now, I'm all for that if they want to go prove something, especially using the scientific method. That's great. Go do it because it's only going to help us get smarter and know more things about the world. But I do find it interesting that these people always add the spiritual component. And if you don't believe what they say, well, then you're not a true Christian and you're not being saved. Those are the two biggest red flags that we always have to watch out for in Christianity. If someone tells you, do this or you're not going to be saved, right? Now, don't get me wrong. As a Christian, we do have standards we need to follow, but we follow them not to be saved. We follow them because we are saved. There's a big difference. We don't follow them as a way to make sure that we get into heaven. We follow them because we love Jesus, because he first loved us. There's a big, huge difference in it. But in regards to this argument, in regards to the things that are said here, we really don't find a basis of Christianity in either side. So, does it really matter to the Christian? No, it doesn't. Because when God comes anyway, the Bible says he's going to roll the sky like a scroll and everything's going to burn up and we're going to go back to the heavenly kingdom. And then God will come back and he will remake this earth new again. Whether he makes it flat or round, it doesn't matter. Because we'll be happy because we'll be with God. We'll be happy whether it's flat or it's round. That's not up to us. We're not the creator, right? That's up to God. Now, it is interesting to note that when you do look in the simple telescope in the sky at night, that the majority of planets are round. Why would we be any different? Now, I've heard many Christians say, well, we're different because we're special, and God made us that special. That's why God had to make us flat. Okay, you could use that argument and have that belief, but it doesn't pass the smell test to me. But still, both sides have good arguments. There are very smart people on both sides. There are believers on both sides, right? So we have to respect that, but we still have to see what exactly they're saying. because we want to make sure that we only follow godly advice that comes from Scripture. And we don't want to get up in these debates that ultimately do nothing to help or further our relationship with Jesus, right? And if, like I said, if one group is telling you you're not going to be saved, or you're deceived by Satan because you don't want to believe in this idea, they're probably not the right people to hang around with. But this is what's happening with the final experiment. Two groups of people going out to prove that they're both right, and that their God is right, I guess. To me, that's not really the case, but you know, these are both groups of Christians. Not all of them are Christians, but a lot of them are, and they're going both prove who is right. And what's going to happen? Well, we're going to find out soon when they come back and they tell us what their experiments were, what their evidence is, what they showed, and what happened when they walked on that ice. Because I'm telling you, friends, once you walk on that ice, flat earth just crumbles, because that's their main point out of all their arguments. You cannot make it there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And this is the experiment known as the final experiment. Flat earthers, globers going together on a trip to the ice wall or into Antarctica to see what they can find, what they can observe, and to see if they can answer that big question a lot of people have been asking for thousands of years. Is the earth flat or is it round? We'll see what happens, friends. Well, friends, my name is Ray, and I am your host here at Biblical Thinking. Continue to follow us here in our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page. If you're watching this on a YouTube channel, please like and subscribe, so that way you can know and get the notifications whenever any video comes up. Please, if you're on the Facebook page or on the YouTube, please invite others and let them know what's going on here on our page. The things we're talking about, maybe it's something that will pique their interest, and we could help lead others to Jesus. That's our main goal here, and that's what we want to do, and that's what we strive to do here at Biblical Thinking. Not only to share Jesus with other people, but share the truth. So I hope you have a great day, a great night, whenever it is that you're listening to this, and let's see what happens. Maybe we'll have the answer to that big question: is the earth flat or is it round? Have a good one, everyone, and God bless.